For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Question for you. Have you ever found out through social media that your relationship with someone was over? I'm not talking about a romantic partner. I'm just saying whether it was a friendship or, a relative or something. Did you just happen to stumble upon and realize, oh, wait a second, I'm blocked? Or, do you know what I'm going at? Okay, here we are. So we're going to talk about that coming up on The Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here on The Scribble. I find social media to be just really... I don't know. I guess the thing is that I had a platform. I had multiple platforms. I had a newspaper column. I had a radio show. So I had an avenue, multiple avenues, to communicate my messaging to people. So I've always had, for 20 years, I've had platforms to be able to speak my mind, share my thoughts with some, with people. And it's not, so the concept of social media was, the concept of being able to reach the world via social media obviously was new, but that was something that I was used to. So the novelty for me was not like, oh my God, I've got social media, I can now go and blast my message to everyone, because I've always been able to do that. So I found it interesting how people use that as a means of communication, right? I'm not much of a texter because, as you can tell by this show, I'm a talker. And so for me to tell a story by text would, my thumbs will break. And I don't know, I have no interest in scrolling and reading a, 10-page text message of a story. I'm the type of person where I'll just call you. And I also don't like texting somebody, hey, can you talk now? No, I'm just going to call you because we talk and that's how things go. So I've found it interesting when people will, and I've experienced this too, where you'll be having a debate or fight or argument, whatever word you want to use, with someone, and they will do the and blocked. They kind of, it's almost like to get the last word in, and I guess there's something that feels powerful about that to the person, as though like, I'm going to get the last word and I'm going to cut you off so you can't have the last word, and I'm ending it, and I've never understood that. And the equivalent would be, for my generation, of hanging up the phone on somebody, right? You might be having a debate or whatever, and all of a sudden it's, click, hang up. Well, if you are passionate about whatever it is that you're arguing, then you will likely call the person right away, right? As soon as you get hung up on, you call them back. And then there's that power, because it'll be pick up the phone and then hang it up again. Or now I guess they'll hit the ignore button, so your call goes right to voicemail. Either way, it was still just very power trippy. So I was the type of person who back in the day, it's like, well, the fight is on now, and I'm going to call you back, and I'm going to call you back, and I'm going to call you back until we settle this, just because, But now it's digital, but I don't understand the whole point of like announcing that you're about to block somebody. And blocked. And you're blocked. It's like, why do we have, like, what's the point? I equate that to remember on a TV show, on a sitcom, and it probably still happens now, when there's an argument, right? There's a disagreement, and the person announces that they're leaving. Think about episodes of like Saved by the Bell or any of those shows, right? Fight, and then it's like, I'm out of here. They always say that they're going to leave, right? Do you know what I'm saying? And so I asked people, I said, do people actually do that in real life? Have you either been in a situation or you be that person who will end it and go, I'm out of here? Or do you just leave? Like, do you just go and say, yeah, whatever, see ya? But why do you have to say, I'm out of here? That's like saying, I'm hanging up on you now, and then do it. Like, just do it. Just do it. So, anyway. So, not too long ago, I was having a conversation with my cousin, and we were talking about, I don't know, what were we talking about? Oh my God. I don't remember how we got onto the subject, but anyway, we started talking about one of our other cousins and her husband. And all of us, we were doing a video chat, and all of a sudden my cousin kind of has this smirk when I mention that cousin and her husband. And I'm talking with them, and I said, oh yeah, And so I look at her, I'm like, well, what do you smile? Like, what's going on? I'm like, why? And she said, don't you remember that he blocked you? Meaning the husband. And I said, no, I haven't. Like, why? I don't know that. But again, I never really had a relationship, with them anyway. And she said, you don't remember? I said, no. Like, what? Like, why? Truthfully, here's the thing. I might recognize that cousin if I were to see her on the street, but if I were just to see the husband in a store on his own, I wouldn't know who he is. So this is my indication of how close we were not, really. Okay. So I said, no, I don't. And she's like, don't you remember? Because his dad died during the pandemic. He died from the corona. And I said, okay. And she said, do you remember when you took that trip? Because we had, I signed off from our syndicated Top 40 music show during the pandemic, and we taped our show in Nashville. Now, as a journalist, we were essential workers, so I was able to travel back and forth without issue, right? Remember, like, air travel was shut down, the borders were shut down, unless it was absolutely necessary for work, you really weren't allowed to fly. So I, as a journalist, I said, well, we're ending our show, and so I'm going to Nashville and whatever. Now in Canada, we had some very weird rules about when you came back into the country, you had to go into a mandatory hotel quarantine. Now, if you Google this, Google like pandemic hotel quarantine Canada or something. So basically what it was the government essentially forced you to go into a hotel. Now, the hallways were all plastic, like tarps and everything. People were wearing like, when we got to the airport in Toronto when we were coming back, it just felt like they were wearing spacesuits, like hazmat outfits. It was very, very weird. And so one of the requirements was you had to spend up to 3 days in a quarantine hotel. Now, this was plagued by scandal because you had instances where people weren't fed properly. You weren't allowed to even have like contact with the outside world. And this is absolutely true. You can read the report. I believe it was the National Post, that basically somebody was put into a van, not told where they were going. They were just ushered to, so think about what Trump is doing, with immigrants, or well, just with people in general in the United States. That's kind of what this was during the pandemic was, you're not being told where you're going. You're just going into a nondescript van that doesn't have windows, and you're being taken to a hotel that's got tarps all over the hallways. And then this is the funny thing, is that you go from the airport to this nondescript building or a hotel, and you're in a big conference room with all the other people waiting to check in. So you're supposed to be quarantining, right? You're supposed to be quarantining because they assume that you have the virus first, or, as though, and then, but we're going to corral everybody into a room to sit and infect each other, So again, there were instances where there was abuse, there was sexual assault, there was not being fed properly, and you had to pay. It was at your expense. You had to pay, and of course the rates were through the roof, right? They're going to jack that up. It was upwards of $2,000, and it might be a 3-night stay. But if you got your test results back because you were tested at the airport, you might just have to stay there one day. So you could essentially go, and then by the time you've checked in and paid in advance, this wasn't just like, oh, we'll pay for one day at a time. Nope. The entire thing. You could get your test results and be told, okay, you're good, and then go home. Well, if you refused, you, now in some, depending on the city that you were in Canada, you could either just walk away from the airport and not have an issue, or you would get a ticket, you would get a fine. And I said, I have a house in Winnipeg. I know that I'm not infected. I was just you had to get tested in Nashville before I came back. I had to go and spend like $200 and some to get a test to show that I didn't have it. I was tested again at the airport. So I refused, and I was given attitude by this stupid bitch with a clipboard who thought that she was going to intimidate me. And I said, the plane is pretty much empty, and I'm not going into a hotel. I'm not being forced into this, to a hotel, not knowing where I'm going, not being fed properly, and, all this other stuff. I said, I'm not doing it. The plane is probably going to be mostly empty anyway, so I can keep my distance from people, and I'm not comfortable, in places where people are getting assaulted, and I'm just not. It's not safe for me. It's safer in my house. And so she's trying to give me attitude or whatever. So I refused the quarantine and basically came home, and I had written a series of newspaper columns about it. And it was a ticket for $6,000. I've still never paid it. And so apparently, now going back to my cousin, there's a connection here. Don't think that I'm totally off track. So I come home, I get back to my house in Winnipeg, and that night, it was about midnight or so. So a few hours after I'd landed and got home, all of a sudden I get my test results by email. Sure, of course, I don't have it, right? I didn't have the Rona. And by the way, still to this day, all these years later, I've never had it. I just want to be clear on this. So anyway, because the cousin's husband, his dad, I think it was, died, the husband basically had this kind of a shit fit, and he posted on his Facebook page. Now, I didn't see it, so this is what my cousin was telling me just the other day. Something to the effect of, it's sickening when, somebody in your family is going to be so reckless and dangerous and, blah, 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 especially in a time like this. And so he didn't name me, I was told, but basically because I had gone and written this in the newspaper, apparently the family connected the dots to know that he was referencing me. And so, again, whatever. I mean, I didn't have it. No, there was, no. And so would you rather me be exposed to a room full of people who potentially have it? Right? Like, what makes one better than the other? Right? And even, by the way, there were studies and there were reports and everything that the hotel quarantine did absolutely nothing in terms of stopping the spread of the virus. I just want to be clear on that as well. So, again, as a Canadian, I am free to go to my house in Winnipeg. You can't stop. I didn't do anything wrong. You're not allowed to stop me. So, here we are. But that's also when the government was kind of strong-arming us into things at the time. So anyway, so husband goes on this rant about this unnamed relative. Like I said, I wouldn't be able to pick him out in public if I saw him in a crowd. Would not even. You would say to me, "Oh, that's so and so's husband." I'd be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, now I see it." But no, I could have walked by him in the mall yesterday. I wouldn't have known. I really wouldn't have. So we're not that super close. Anyway, so she said to me that, he went on that rant and then he blocked you or whatever, because in the comments, people were basically piling on and, saying to the husband, oh yeah, people like that are so ignorant and blah, blah, blah. And then he said something to the effect of, yeah, well, I blocked him. And again, I look at that and go, that's so juvenile, because first of all, you're an adult. He's a parent. And I'm an adult. I don't even have their phone numbers, so I wouldn't be able. It's not like, hey, just text me, we can talk this out. So it would have had to have been, I guess, a Facebook message. Nevertheless, I just kind of thought he could have, sent me a message and been like, But again, it doesn't affect. So your dad died. That wasn't my fault. I didn't kill your fucking dad. I had nothing to do with that. You're making it seem like I'm going around and licking flagpoles and hand railings and doorknobs and spreading the virus and whatever. No, okay. I'm glad you find that my rights were being infringed upon and violated in that moment. But you're selfishly thinking of your dad that, again, I probably wouldn't, I don't even know the dad's name. Again, wouldn't even know this guy to see him. I had nothing to do with his death. But for some reason, it's people like me that are doing it. Sorry, buddy, I've still never had it. And you've had it probably 3 times or 4 times. And your kids and your wife, So, if anything, you could say that I was actually being the safest in our family because I think I'm the only one who has never had it. Ever. So you're not going to go and say to me that I'm the spreader when... Now, be different if I tested positive and then knowingly went around and did all that shit. Okay, fine. But unless you know the story, tough guy, no, it's, you can be mad at me all you want. So anyway, so the fact that my cousin said, you don't remember, I said, I have no idea. I also don't care. And I don't spend that much time on social media. So, unless either the person tagged me or whatever and I get a notification. And I mean, if I look at my Instagram page, I think I've posted maybe 15 times this year. Facebook, I don't even know. So... I just don't pay attention to those things. So I'm saying that, as I'm talking to my cousin, I go and I open Facebook and I said, well, let me look up, and I also, by the way, don't remember even the guy's last name, like how to spell it. So again, that's how close we are. So I type in my cousin's name, so her first name, right? And then she took his last name. So I type in last name. So she still comes up, but she's, not as a friend. Like she's, whatever you call, unfriended me. And so I said, okay, so I go to her page and it shows just stuff from a few years ago. So I guess that means that she only shares her page with her friends. And I said, okay, so his name is, so she spells the name. And so I look him up and then I wasn't blocked, but again, I didn't see any of the new posts. And I just kind of thought that's so funny because you have this is the equivalent of I'm out of here or, I'm hanging, slamming down the phone. And so I look at that and go, it really didn't have an impact because if you were trying to send a message to me, you can unfriend me all you want. I'm the one that's part of the family. So you're the in-law, you're the add-on. You're not family. So unfriending me doesn't make me go away. It doesn't kick me out of the family. It really has no, what's the point? It doesn't so it's not like I post on social media every 5 hours because I don't. So it's not like I was coming up in your feed all the time. I don't know. I guess I've just I don't understand kind of what that point is. So is that your passive aggressive way of saying, because here's the thing is that 5 years later, I didn't even notice. 5 years later, I didn't even notice that my cousin unfriended me and so did her husband. So if your point was, well, if you were expecting that I was watching the comments and I saw that post, I truly had no idea. And the fact that my cousin even said to me, the cousin I was chatting with, as if, don't you remember kind of a thing? I said, I didn't even know that in the first place. I really didn't. When would that have come up? I mean, who would have told me that? I don't know. I just didn't. So then fast forward to, present day. So I was having, a conversation again with my guy. We talk a lot where we do so much fun stuff. Our video chats end up being 2-3 hours and we're half in the bag. And it's really funny because we don't live that far apart from each other when I'm in Winnipeg. So we could easily be getting together all the time. But when I'm in Los Angeles, we do video chats quite a bit. So we were talking about somebody else on the other side of my family. So she's on my dad's side of the family. And so I had a falling out with... my mom's, well, not with everybody, but there was a situation that came about a few years ago, and I haven't really gone to a lot of family get-togethers and whatever since then. And there's a whole story. I think I talked about that on the show years ago. But so the relationship with me and several other people has changed. So again, we're talking about whatever, and she said, "Oh, I saw that so and so is traveling, is somewhere." And I said, but again, I don't keep tabs on people's lives on social media. If it's somebody who's close enough with me, they'll text me or, we'll have a conversation and I'll know that they're going on vacation or whatever they're doing. So she said, so-and-so's in such and such city. And so then I after we were talking, I went and I looked and I was like, okay, cool. And I had just talked with this relative about a month, well, maybe 2 months earlier, we had a phone call. Wait. Yeah, it was about 2 months earlier. So she's still, that relative is still my friend on Facebook. And I was kind of like, okay, well, she was with a couple other people, with a couple of other relatives. So I went and I clicked the pictures, whatever. And so when I went to click to another relative's page, my cousin, on my mom's side, not the one that I'm referencing, but I went and clicked on a cousin from the other side of the family, and all of a sudden, it says to add her as a friend. And I thought, that's really weird, because that cousin doesn't live in the same city as the rest of the family. Like, I had gone to see her and her husband before, and, we had a great time. They showed me around, and I stayed at their place, and, as far as I knew, we had a decent relationship. There wasn't a problem between us. So the fact that I've got to, that this cousin unfriended me, because now it says to add her as a friend. So I went and I clicked on the husband's page, and the last conversation that I had with them, the husband was saying to come and visit. So I click on the husband's page. He's also unfriended me. And so, again, it's just kind of weird. Now, I'm not expecting somebody's going to announce and say, I'm unfriending you because whatever. They've just gone and done that. And so it's strange to me, because it doesn't bother me, it doesn't offend me, because like I said, who knows when it was even done. So the fact that I haven't even noticed goes and shows you really how close, we are. But, if I had by the way, the issue wasn't with these people that I'm talking about. So they obviously know about what happened and obviously don't agree with me, right? They clearly are not on my side. Even though when last we spoke, they were. So it's just kind of strange that something has happened. There's been rumblings or whatever on that side of the family, and now all of a sudden. So I go back to my cousin that I was having the conversation with, and I said to her, what's interesting was that I went and I saw so-and-so's page because you mentioned that she was traveling, and I went to go look at the pictures because you were describing them as we talked. And I said, I went after, and isn't it interesting that so-and-so and so-and-so unfriended me? And so she's like, oh, that's weird. Did something happen with you guys? I said, no, not as far as I know. That's what was kind of strange to me. So we're talking about it for a little while, and then she says, are you bothered by it? Like, it kind of seems... I said, not so much, because like I said, if we were having regular contact, right? Like, if this was somebody that I spoke with on a weekly basis, or, we kept tabs on each other, or I was constantly looking to see what they're up to and what's going on, then it would have caught me off guard. But the fact that I can't even tell when this happened, right? Was this last week? Was this 6 months ago? Was this, like I said, the falling out happened probably about a good 3 years ago. So at some point in that time period, they unfriended me. So that's what I'm saying, is that if I haven't noticed it in this long, and we also haven't had contact, I haven't had a text from her, I haven't had a phone call with her, I haven't, so is it really a loss for me? Because they obviously weren't in my life, for the past few years. And it's not like they just stopped talking to me because of the issue that happened. I have seen them. Oh, that's not true. I guess I saw them about a year and a half ago when they were in town. We had a big family function, actually, and she drove me home from it. So it's, anyway. So it just struck me odd that, there's a part of me that wanted to just message and go, or even do an add friend again and just kind of see, what happens. But I guess so the issue for me was, I don't know, could you maybe just go and say, hey, I kind of don't really like how things played out. That would be the grown-up thing to do, right? I'm not saying be told, I don't like that, so I'm unfriending you, but it just kind of seems strange. Like I said about the other one, is the other cousin, is that that doesn't take me out of the family. I'm still, I'm still around, so I don't really know what that accomplishes or what that does. So because I'm having this conversation with that cousin that still speaks to me, I just said, no, I guess it's just weird, because obviously that's sending a message to the person, right? That's sending a message to me, we're not friends anymore. But like I said, I look at that and go, well, obviously we weren't, because we haven't, spoken in however long. So it doesn't... So I guess I look at this, go, you're in your 50s, I'm in my 40s. That's your, I don't know. What, when you're doing it, are you expecting the person to see that you're no longer friends? Are you expecting, because again, I don't post very often, so I wouldn't come up on your page, really at all. And then what? So you don't want me to see what's happening in your life when you live in another country or whatever? Obviously I didn't fucking care because I didn't even know that we're no longer friends. So what do you make of that? What do you think about people who... Is it a slap in the face to be unfriended? Do you tell people when you're unfriending? Do you kind of let them know? Do you so that you have the final word, like I said earlier? Send me an email, live, Live, at jbonair.com. Live at jbonair.com. It really doesn't make sense to me. I just don't get it. So, am I losing sleep over it? Am I, hurt by it or whatever? No, here's the thing, because like I said, I didn't even know that all these people have unfriended me. So that goes to show you how close that we are, right? Or were. So it doesn't bother me. Have you had that situation where all of a sudden you're kind of like, oh, I haven't heard from so-and-so, I haven't seen them on my feed lately, and then you type in their name and it's like, oh, they're not on my list anymore. They're not a friend anymore. Have you encountered that? And do you confront them? Do you say something? Like I said, this happened a while back already, so I mean, I haven't done anything, about it. I like I said, I don't care. But would you pursue it? Would you look into it? Would you inquire? Would you get to the bottom of it? Or does it make you just go and say, well, all right, there's no, why am I going to waste my time then? There's really no point. Again, live, LIVE, at jbonair.com. Back on the Scribble right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
JB here on The Scribble in our final remaining moments. It was interesting. We were just talking during the break, which, we had about barely a minute. And so, the whole thing about social media is that we have so many ways to communicate with each other, whether that's publicly posting, direct messaging on multiple platforms, right? There's so many ways to be in touch with somebody or to have your say, right, to be heard. And I've heard it from many people who go and say, people just lack communication, which that's so weird to me. We've never had this many ways to communicate with people, but it's all just gone to shit. It's all just, do you remember when texting first started, or even actually, it was email at work, email at the office, because it's it can be interpreted the wrong way, right? People can misread. You can't sense tone or whatever. Yeah, you can. If you're a good enough writer, you can sense tone. But again, it could be misinterpreted, could be taken the wrong way. So that's where you hear people go and say, you know what, come and talk to me. Or, it could be a good phone call. We can clear it up. It doesn't have to be an issue. And so that's where I'm always the type of person who it's let's just talk. I'm not going to have this fight back and forth through texting. I'm just not going to do that. So if I call you and you don't answer, that's your immaturity. That's not mine. Right? Talking it through, communicating is the way to get past something. And so just now the team was talking about saying is that it's so juvenile. I would never think that, let's say that I don't know, I'm trying to, on the spot here, let me come up with an example. Something that's a very serious, not a breakup, but let's say, I can't think of anything right now. But you know where I'm going with this is, we're in our 40s. Are we going to just text back and forth and go at each other? And it's what? That's a teenager thing to do. Pick up the phone, call me, let's hash it out and move on. I'm not going to drag this out for 4 hours and, insult back and forth. I have no interest in that. I've got nothing to gain from that. Call me, talk it out. If you hit ignore, when I know that you've devoted how many hours or how many, messages back and forth, so I know that I've got your attention on this. I just don't want to deal with people like that in my life, right? I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to go on. And so that's where I laugh and think people in their 30s or 40s are kind of doing this passive-aggressive way to send a message that I'm unfollowing you or unfriending you. And meanwhile, clearly, in my situation, I don't even notice it literally for years. I mean, I guess that made you feel better. If that made you feel good that you clicked that unfriend button, meanwhile, the person doesn't even know and clearly didn't give a shit. Like I said, with that first example with my cousin's husband, I didn't even know how to spell his last name. I wouldn't even recognize him on the street. So then to go, to unfriend me, I'm like, whatever. That that doesn't bring your dad back to life, and it doesn't, change what I did, which is never have corona. So anyway, again, that email address, live, Live, at jbonair.com, live at jbonair.com. How do you communicate with somebody if you're having a disagreement? Is it hours and hours of texts back and forth? Is it doing this whole like hanging up thing? Like, is that a sign of immaturity doing it that way? I just feel like we can have a conversation and then put it past us and move on. I don't know why it's got to be some big dramatic, I don't know. Then you risk it being like, screenshots and being blasted everywhere too. This way, like, let's just have it out. Let's go for a drink. Let's talk it out. Call me, whatever. Anyway, my name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. I will talk to you, as long as you don't unfriend me, next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some